move now to our fireside chat, powered by the internet, and we are joined by not just one, but two business titans. And I know so many of you are excited to ask them questions, so just a reminder, you can raise your digital hand to ask the question within the tool, and we will try to get to as many as possible. First up, we have Michelle Romanow, who's a serial entrepreneur who started 6 companies before her 35th birthday, a dragon on CBC's hit show Dragon's Den. Michelle today is the co-founder and president of Clearco. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, good to be here.
Thanks for being here. Second up, we have Mohamed Faqih, who is one of Canada's most respected philanthropists. Upon his arrival in Canada, Mohamed purchased a near-bankrupt restaurant and built it into one of North America's fastest-growing Middle Eastern halal food chains, Paramount Fine Foods. He is today the CEO of Paramount Fine Foods. Hello, Mohamed. All right. Okay, so we are going to get started. And Mohamed, I'm going to come to you first. I think you may be on mute, so just make sure that you're not on mute for the question.
I'm going to repeat. I said, hi, Amber, and hi, Michelle.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I guessed as much. I'm pretty good at reading lips at this point.
On my end, you got me have a heart attack.
It's all good. We'll get through it. Okay, so Mohamed, I'm going to ask the first question to you because for most people who have been watching the news over the past year and a half, the restaurant industry has had a really challenging time. So before we get into specific questions, I just wanted to ask you, what has the past 18 months been like for Paramount?
Well, I mean, thank you for the question. It's very important because it's a lifetime lesson what happened. You're running, you're always thinking of new ideas, new businesses. I'm very well known as the CEO of Paramount. I have more investment, over 11 in other businesses. But Paramount is my baby. Paramount is a company I started. Didn't have $1,000 in my pocket when I started the company and growing it. And today we are over 80 locations worldwide. And when the pandemic hit, our sales were over $120 million. And all of a sudden, we were bringing in every month $500,000. So, which is not even half of our payroll for head office and for our food manufacturing. And it was crazy, it was very, we all went to a dark place. But the most important is how fast you come back and you start thinking about things differently. And I'll never forget my team, like my 2 executives walked in and said, we're going to start laying off people, we're going to change things. And Paramount ran on 4 Ps. People first, purpose, the community second, planet, to get to profit. Profit is a destination for Paramount. So I said, no, like our mission and our vision is always based on people first. So no, this is a time where we step back, all of us, for a couple of days, think about it, and we come back and we find a plan. And definitely that's what we did. And I'm glad to say to everyone, Paramount is much stronger today than before the pandemic. A lot of our stores, especially outside downtown Toronto, are better than 2019. I'm sure Sierra will be very happy. The power of internet had a lot to do with that, for sure. And it had made us build new brands within our own locations because the square footage wasn't needed. We call it cloud brands, that now after the pandemic, we start expanding separately. And most importantly, when you say my company put people first, it kept me connected to my team. I walk every morning around my team, desk to desk, and say hello to them and ask them the better how's your family? How was your night? What kept you up at night? And then the internet allowed me to create that check-in call every morning where pets and partners allowed. And sometimes you see one of the kids popping up to the call. But we still had those questions, seeing their faces, talking to them through the internet, regardless if they're in BC or in England or in Dubai or in Beirut or right here in Mississauga, right? We had the chance to ask these questions, what's to celebrate and what kept you up at night? And, there's always reason to celebrate when you love your team and you consider them a family. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. I learned very fast that we needed to be like a shark and like a goldfish. A shark move always forward. And the goldfish, very short memory, not always be stuck on the way we did things before, move ahead, move forward, and most importantly, when things get hard, don't lose who you are. And at Paramount, I'm proud to say we did not lay off people. we actually did not lose the fact that we put people first and purpose first. And we used our kitchen to cook for the community. And we used every way to maintain our staff, including launching brands when everyone were scaling back. So we maintained our vision, and that's the biggest thing to celebrate. To everyone building a company, making money is a destination for me. It's a profit. How you get there is the most important. And the most important in Paramount during the pandemic, we got there without losing our noble mission.
Well, listen, we're going to dive into that further in terms of some of the little mini pivots that you took, Mohammed. And I love the analogy of the shark and the goldfish. I totally appreciate, especially the goldfish side, that it's good to have a short-term memory at times. Michelle, I want to come to you because I think it's interesting looking from the outside in that not only did you continue to grow your business and make headlines over and over again, but you also did a rebranding in the middle of the pandemic, which I imagine was challenging. So just set us up in terms of where you are today, and then we can get into this conversation about advice for businesses during this difficult time.
Yeah, so we were about 170 people when the pandemic started. I remember having an emergency meeting called that was moved from 5 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And I was like, we have to send everyone home. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. We're a completely in-office culture in every way. And then getting home and realizing that this was incredibly scary. We were so scared that consumer spending was going to drop. To give people background, we've invested now more than $2.5 billion in over 6,000 different e-commerce brands. We're the largest e-commerce investor in the world and have pioneered this idea of revenue sharing for founders. And so you can imagine if all of our founders are e-commerce companies and no one's buying things on the internet, that would be very bad for us. And so there was a lot of fear during that period. We went into, again, a daily mode of, what we needed to do. We did some small layoffs of people that really had, in-office jobs or campus recruiting or things that really wouldn't exist during COVID. And then what happened a couple of months in is everything started to change. We saw e-commerce sales absolutely surge. And the numbers on this are just extraordinary. I mean, depending on whose numbers and exactly what market you're looking at, something between e-commerce was 15% of retail sales all the way up to like 27 we were seeing in some markets. And that all occurred within a couple of short months. And to put that in perspective, that was a 10-year shift that we saw overnight. And so, instead of pulling back on giving our companies money, we continue to invest during that period, and we're really able to scale up. Today, a year and a half in, we are now over 500 people. We are a $2 billion company, so we hit unicorn status and have continued to grow. But there is no doubt there was some incredibly scary periods within that. And the internet both fueled our business and fueled everything that came out of this exploding e-commerce segment.
So, Michelle, I'm going to come back to you in a second and talk about some of those business tactics in terms of how you leverage the internet and technology during this time. Mohammed, I wanted to talk for a second about some pivots within your business, because I mentioned you're in the restaurant industry, but it is true also to say that every business today is a technology business, yours included. And you also launched a new brand. Can you talk about some of those pivots that you took and what that journey has been like?
Thank you very much. And I really felt exactly what Michelle was saying, like those scary moments where you're really almost testing your own promises to your own people. Again, the people come first. A lot of people stop me in the middle of the street and say, customer come first. I say, no, to CEO, our people come first. When you put your people first, then they will put the customer first. So for us, a couple of days after that meeting that I had my executive, they came in and they said, what we're going to do, we're going to lay off in our arena. We had 250 people alone, and we're going to lay them all off. The arena's closed, and we're going to do this. And I said, you know what? No. What we're going to do is anything you want except removing one glass of milk from anyone's table. We're not going to run backward. We're going to run forward. And they said, what do you mean? I said, you've been always telling me about a good non-fried chicken tastes like a fried chicken is a great idea. How fast can we flip that? Call Massimo Capra. I heard he's having some trouble with his locations, and ask him if he can do a pizza with halal ingredient that we can launch online. So we launched 2 cloud brands, and we have these big locations that all the chairs are on top of the tables. We're closed, And we didn't know what to do with all these square footage that we have to pay rent for. So I said to them, why don't we turn them to a food court and do it all cloud online? And my team, much smarter than I am, all of them. I'm a gemologist that decided to get into the food industry. Like, it's all upside down. What I studied, what I did in the end is completely different. I own a roofing company. I never understood roofing in my life. So, but the bottom line is you count on great people better than yourself. We created the idea of Boxed, which is web-based restaurant, touchless, web-based cubby where you open them with a button from your phone. You decide what time you need your food, and even if you're late, you can change the time. That's all because of the power of the web and the internet. And we did all that while we maintained the idea what Paramount was built on and why we always existed. So when you say to people, and that's very important to everyone that use the internet, the web, and everything, people think when you use technology, you hire less people. I'm telling everyone, you actually hire more people, you get to a bigger profit, and then you give back more to the community, because part of Paramount is not making a penny without sharing it with the community. That's part of our DNA as well. So look, because of the power of the web and the internet, we did not only launch 3 brands during the pandemic, we maintained, because of being able to sell people on the internet and the curbside and everything that we pivoted to, we maintained our staff employed. And in Boxed, I mean, even if it's a web-based restaurant, touchless, when you walk in, you pick up your food from a Cubby's, there is more staff in the back, because what having a touchless restaurant allowed, based on the internet and website and all the integration that we did to get there, it will allow you to have more output from that restaurant, because we have so many Cubby's out there, and that will require more chefs behind the Cubby's. So we did pivot. The top line sale, like those same location, I'll never forget, we did exceed 2019 sale in March 2020, because we brought in the chicken concept, the pizza concept, into the same Paramount location. And those are cloud brand only through the web, and it added top line sale to the same exact expense and to the same labor. And that made it more profitable for us.
So, Michelle, just as Mohammed is speaking, I'm thinking about how well both of you were able to adapt. You have larger businesses, but it is clear as well that there are people who are watching today who maybe have small businesses. And many of those small business owners were really forced to very quickly adapt and get online or launch apps. Why do you think it is that Canadian businesses took so long, and it took something like this for them actually to move aggressively into this space when it comes to digital?
To be honest, I just think it's hard. It is hard, especially when you've been running a traditional business. I mean, it's kind of what Mohammed said, never waste a good crisis, but it's hard to figure out how to run an internet business. It is a totally different skill set than scouting for real estate, building out a physical space, creating in like customer experiences. And so there was a lot of hesitancy, and the Canadian market had done quite well, right? If you owned probably a commercial property as a small business, that had appreciated so substantially that there just wasn't often the impetus for some of these small businesses to grow. And then I'm very empathetic. It is not easy to grow an internet business. I mean, really, this is one of the reasons that Clearco existed, because we could give people that coaching and that support at the early stages when you were building it out. I mean, this isn't just, set up a website. This is set up a website, get payment processing, get, buy now, pay later options, run ads, build authentic ads, figure out different ad platforms. Like, this is not, get your email list together. These are lots of things that you have to do. And so if your business has been, selling shoes at your local shop, that was just very, very different. Plus, there was the logistical challenges of all of that. And so I think, instead of looking back and saying, why weren't we there? I think it's just, we have made a huge leap forward during COVID to digitize so many businesses, which will be so much better into the future. At the end of the day, e-commerce saves people their time, right? I've been telling my mother to buy her groceries online for the last 5 years. And, she would give me the story about how her blueberries were going to arrive crushed, and that was not going to work out well for her. And then lo and behold, COVID shows up. My mother has to buy her groceries online and everything is okay. And she goes, Michelle, why didn't you tell me to do this earlier? I can auto, buy them again. So I think that's actually really the story of so many consumers during this pandemic. And it does often take that forcing function to get to change. I know this because I remember, I mean, I launched my first e-commerce company in 2010, and we would buy newspaper ads to put people onto a website. And we had a phone number that people would call. And I remember many people we had to teach to download Google Chrome. We said, download Google Chrome, then you go to this website, and we were showing people how to make their first online purchase. So we're certainly not there in 2021 today, but there's still a lot of that market that had to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Technology still can be difficult for so many business owners, but this forced people to get uncomfortable and move quickly. I just want to remind people who are watching right now, I have about 10 minutes left in terms of my questions for Michelle and Mohammed, and I want to encourage all of you to ask questions. I see one from Bill that we're going to get to in a few minutes, so please ask your questions using the little hand icon, and we will get to those in about 10 minutes.
And
Mohammed,
if you
my
allow
question
me,
for
Amber,
you-
something.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I agree 100% with what Michelle said, and I've had a lot of that experiences with some even of my franchisees, and a lot of the tenants that I rent the places to. And the truth is, when you're running a small business, and to everyone that their business is small, I've been there myself many times, including some new businesses I'm starting, because I separate my businesses. Even if I have a big business on one side, another small business, it acts separately and independently. But it's very difficult. It's very hard to step back and have a long-term strategy and catch up with all the technology and all the new things happening, especially that some of the small businesses and the people listening to us are probably just really working so hard to meet the payroll and the rent in the end of the month. Even during 2019, not a lot of businesses were doing so well and extremely well, the brick and mortar especially. And big part of it, it's costly. Like people even who has their POS and their website, a lot of them, they will need to upgrade and integrate. Like just to give you an example, when the pandemic hit and we had to run to all this delivery company, and you have your cash counter full of 12 iPads for this delivery company, like in the middle of lunchtime, like you have a 12 customer yelling at you, and every 5 seconds giving you a new order. You just haven't started the first one, and there's 40 orders already on that one iPad, and there's 12 of them in front of you because they haven't been integrated together. So we had to really change and pivot. We added an extra P to people, planet, purpose, and profit is pivot. So we had to pivot fast, but that's not the ability. That's not the definition of a small businesses. Usually small businesses don't see the end of a trend until it happens, unfortunately, because they don't have the money and they can't afford that integration and that pivoting. And I think we need to make it cheaper, easier for them. And I think even the people launching businesses that they're highly based on technology need to understand that they're going to be leaving out 15 to 20% of their consumer if they do not do it slowly and provide both option temporary until they move it completely to where they want it. And that's what we did at Box. We put a concierge at the front with an iPad. If someone walk in and is not comfortable to order the way we want them to order, they will take their order regularly and they'll teach them how to pick up their food.
Well, yeah, Mohammed, this was actually my question for you before we go back to Michelle, because I always feel as though once you start offering something, you can't really take it away, right? So once you have all these different ways that people can get their food, it's going to accelerate all the different types of ways that your potential customers want to be able to buy from you. So do you think that this demand will continue from an e-commerce perspective as far as people wanting that choice? And how do you plan to meet that demand as you continue in the months to come?
Well, I mean, it's almost two parts of the question. I know I'm here to say how the internet is wonderful. It is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But we saw all in the summer how people were lining up to sit down together, give each other a hug, and meet to eat in person. As well in my other businesses, people did not want us to do presentation for home selling or roofing only online anymore. Sometimes they wanted to see us in person and feel that trust because it's a big investment for them. So I think it'll always continue. I always say when people change their habit, sometimes they prefer to stay at the new habit. But I think this one particularly, it's a combination of both. And I think the same thing with Michelle's example. I'll do grocery in combination of both. I'm in the food business, or newly to the food business, even if I've been in it for 15 years, but I'm a gemologist at the end. But I still like to walk around the aisle of a supermarket and, push the cart while I'm thinking about million other things than the supermarket itself, but I'm smelling the food. Maybe one time out of a month and a half, but I would be a combination for the consumer to do a kind of both, and ordering online food, yet eating at restaurants sometime, or walking in to say hi to the people that fed them sometime. It'll be a combination of both, but Michelle is right. It saves a lot of time. It'll employ more people, and it'll be more efficient for people's time. They'll do more with less time by using the internet and the technology to do.
So, Michelle and Mohammed, we just have a few more minutes before I go to audience questions. Michelle, I wanted to ask you in terms of how both that physical and online part of businesses can continue to coexist. Just building a little bit on what Mohammed just said, it does appear that we're not just going to want things one way only.
Yes, I think diversification is key no matter what you're doing. So the same way that you don't want a single supplier to deliver, all of your products, you don't want a single place for your customer to meet you. And so, diversifying and having online and offline revenue is really, really healthy for a business. It's the same way we encourage our companies to not get their customers from a single place. If every single one of your customers is coming from Facebook, that's also very dangerous, because if the Facebook algorithm changes, you could lose a lot of customer demand. And so ultimately, when I think about what it's going to take to build businesses, you got to do things in stride. So focus at the beginning. I love the idea of starting digitally at the beginning because it's often cheaper and it's a way faster way to try things. And so, if you have an idea, you can put together a Kickstarter campaign. You can use very little capital in your iPhone to make a video to see if it works and see if then customers are willing to buy it, knowing that product might not ship. From there, you can set up, a store. You can see if you can, in a cost-effective way, acquire customers. And then I think the next natural step is moving into retail when you've built that, established brand online and you have that. At the end of the day, if I had one piece of advice for small businesses, is that the best indicator in any business, and we look at so many metrics all day long, is ultimately your retention. People do, I'd say, almost anything once. People rarely do things twice or 3 times or 4 times or regularly unless they love your product. So whether you're looking at your, in-store business, seeing what percentage of your customers come back, but I think that is the best thing that I would look at. And when you have strong retention, you can oftentimes move those customers into both segments.
Yeah, I think it's really great advice. Again, I see the questions coming in. There are a few of them there now. I can't wait to get to them in just a couple of minutes. Mohammed, I just have one more question for you. And this might be a tough one, and I'm sorry I didn't send it in advance, but is this a good time to start a business?
For me, yes. I don't have a problem with that. Look, there's always opportunities when everybody thinks there is none. And actually, I think that will bring a lot of differentiation, but you got to do it differently. And you have to really make sure to understand one word that you have to have is a cash flow. You have to be strong in cash flow, and you have to be what I call bank for disaster. You have to bank for disaster a little bit more. And I always think there is good time to start business. It depends what kind of business. And I have to comment on something that is very important to me. We always speak about the power of internet for businesses. I want to talk more about the power of internet for kindness. I want to talk about more using the internet and the web, how we were able to maintain our fundraising and actually brought more money. Like Michelle lives somewhere else than I am, and she joined me and helped me in my Turkey drive last year. And together, all of us, we donated in the middle of the pandemic for a great Turkey drive. And that's the power of internet and moving it from me calling my friends and calling people to donate. And all of a sudden, we're all coming together as Canadian entrepreneur and non-entrepreneur. One person donating 500 turkeys, the other one turkey, feeding the people in need in our community. We could celebrate the internet for other reasons than just business. I actually urge all of us, people that pushing, including me, pushing my staff to go more web-based apps, internet, to not only talk about internet being only a piece of technology that helps the bottom line on the profit. My bottom line includes community support. After the pandemic, the world required a kinder CEOs, kinder political leader, and kinder P&Ls. And internet could be a tool to get to kinder world. And CIRA believes in that, as I heard from its CEO and the chair. And I think it's very important to understand to all businesses, get your culture in place, use the internet for as well helping the community. But like I said, open businesses, hire more people. I have a famous story I always remember when I was a kid. My dad, we were in a bunker in Lebanon during the war. We were walking out of the bunker. The bunker is smelly, dark, everything. And my dad is smiling. And I'm like, why are you smiling? He said, I can't wait to open more businesses and hire more people. If my dad said that in the middle of a war, Canadian has not got through a war. We got through a pandemic. We lost people, unfortunately. We have a lot of things to celebrate that we learned from the pandemic. Like I said, a shark and a goldfish, and maintain the value of Canada and the principle of this beautiful country, open and welcoming, and make sure that we lift up each other via the internet. That's very important.
I think that's a great point to leave on before we go to the audience Q&A. And just, it's been incredible the way the internet, you're right, has really brought communities together. I can't imagine it not being there for all of us over the past year and a half. We do have a few questions that I'm going to get to right now, but if you don't know how to ask a question, just a reminder that CIRA members, all you have to do is click the hand up icon to ask the question. You can also upvote questions. So basically, if you see a question you really, really want me to ask, you can upvote it. And that's why I'm going to start at the top of the list to respect that process, because I know Bill's question is getting a lot of attention. Michelle, a question for you from Bill. What do you think the workplace environment, remote versus in office, is going to look like in a post-COVID world? Will we return to the office at some point?
It's a really good question that we've had lots of feisty internal debates on. I think what we're going to look like is a hybrid world for a very, very long time. That means that we will have offices. We have offices right now in Ireland, in the UK, in New York, and in Toronto. And it will be one of those things where you can drop in and kind of use like a WeWork, or you can say, look, we're doing a team on site today where we're bringing people together. But the default will not be to work in offices. And one of the things that helped me, is I was very keen on an in-office culture. I actually didn't believe we could do the work as founders that we did unless you had those collisions of ideas, unless you were there late at night brainstorming, unless you really had time with one another. But it's like any other forcing function. We were just forced to work. I mean, I pick up my cell phone dies 3 times a day because I talk so much. And that was just part of the new reality of what we were going to face. Many of my employees moved to different places. They've, totally been able to escape a cold winter. And they're much happier. So I don't think this is wrong. So I think when we look at what the future probably looks like for us, it looks like, 4 times a year where we bring the entire company together. The next thing is that as you build an international company anyways, you have these challenges with time zones and you have to be more kind of video conference first. So we were going to get there no matter what. And then still having spaces where people can go to, where they can have individual teams, where they can spend, a week solving a hard problem or whatever that happens to be. But I think generally we will be largely a remote first environment going forward.
Mohammed, I don't want to miss an opportunity to get you to comment on that, because I saw you nodding your head, especially when Michelle said, I thought we had to be in person. And can you respond to that a little bit as far as
and we all did.
learned?
That's true. We all did, and we thought it had to be in person. But Michelle is, once again, I agree with her because there is some things I still want to do in person. Like we have this meeting twice a year that we rent a big villa somewhere far. We all wear our ugliest pajamas and we go there and we brainstorm. We do stop, start, continue strategy, what we stop doing, what we start doing, what we should continue doing as a brand. They go before me 2 days before I get there because I don't want them to be changing what they're thinking just because I'm there in the meeting. Then I arrive and we sleep there for 4 nights total. We go out, do some activity together. That is different. To create a parking lot on the wall, what thing we could be missing as opportunity. I like that in person. Everything else has it changed. I'm blessed to be able to go high five with my dishwashers and the people and my roofers and the people who's building the houses I sell. But the bottom line, it's a hybrid. It's going to stay that way. We didn't expect it, but like I said, pivoting is the way it is. It's not about let me stop opening businesses. Let me stop expanding my businesses. No, let's continue opening businesses and hiring people, but we're going to do it differently.
It's a good point. And Norma has a question, and Mohammed, I'm going to stick with you on this one and then come to you, Michelle. A lot of people, I think, who are watching right now, like Michelle had mentioned and we had talked about, it is difficult to build a business right now, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, after the pandemic. It's still difficult. A lot of people want resources or places or ideas they can go in terms of mentoring and programs. So that's Norma's question. Mohammed, if we can start with you. Where should people go if they are just seeking that inspiration or those tools if they're new entrepreneurs?
Well, Norman, thank you for your question. If you think it's now difficult, well, imagine the time I came to Canada 20 years ago with a heavy accent, didn't know anyone, and I still had to bother everyone and be in their face and beg them 50 times before they mentor me or talk to me. It's easier now in the internet. It's a growing pain what you're feeling. It's normal. That means you're growing and you're going to get that power of asking people to mentor you and to help you. As far as resources for business, is actually cheaper now than before. The old day was a brick and mortar. Even if you talk about to the people that, used to build businesses before, it used to be much more expensive than today to actually start a business. Now is less expensive and definitely still need money. But look, you got to have to start somewhere, somehow. And there's a lot of good people looking for great ideas. The world doesn't need more money. The world needs good people and good idea. There is enough investment and money available for people who has a great idea, Norma. It's all about you getting out there, finding the right mentor and people to believe in your idea. And trust me, people, including me, Michelle, and a lot of other of my friend and Michelle's friend, I'm sure, right? They're looking for a great ideas and a great people. The money's there for you.
Michelle, just quickly to you before we go to Peter's question in terms of the best place to go for resources if you are a new entrepreneur.
There are so many. I think you go to entrepreneurs you admire. As Mohammed said, we're always looking for good ideas. I mean, Clearco has a ton of resources and has an angel program. If you're interested, get involved in the ecosystem. Groups like YPO and EO are all very, very helpful. And then the biggest thing is find other entrepreneurs in your community. The entrepreneurial journey is miserable at moments. And I think always misery loves company. Having other people that can remind you that their businesses almost didn't make it, that this is a hard journey, but this is what they did, makes a huge, huge, huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for all of the technical stuff that new businesses need to do online, Sarah didn't ask me to say this, but I have used their resources a lot as well over at Sarah.ca. So when you're registering your domain, you need help on that front. There is a lot of information there as well. Mohammed, there's a question here from Peter that says, I agree there is much kindness possible online, but how do we generate better mental health, knowing that mental health is a growing issue among all demographics?
By talking about it. Like I said, we have this check-in meeting in the morning, and one of the questions, usually CEOs wants only to talk about, oh, how's it going? Should I ask about their family? Is it right to ask about their family? Is it not right to ask about it? No, our questions were different. What kept you up at night last night? And by talking about anything, people start feeling that it's okay to open up and talk about it. And by promoting that it's okay to talk about it and to have the conversation together, look, as a CEO or not, even my dishwasher and I felt the same way in the pandemic. The difference, I think I was more stressed than my dishwasher because I was responsible of his or her job. So we all went through that darker spot, darker place. Maybe because of the immigrant story and coming in with $1,000 and living a civil war gave me that snap and that hunger to jump back faster. Or maybe because of the responsibility of my 2,000 employees, that those 2,000 family depended on me. But the bottom line, anything, it's all about opening the conversation, talking more about it, and telling each other, because in the world of social media, definitely through the internet again, everyone posts the best picture of their life. Life is not perfect. If you think that you fell once, probably I fell 50 times. To everyone out there trying to start a business, I left the shower or walked in the shower 50 times where I thought I'm going to bankrupt my company. Not only in the pandemic, since I started. And there's always ways that I found to continue going and growing my company. So when you feel that there is a hiccup, you have to identify that's part of the growing pain. Falling and making mistakes is part of the growing pain. And feeling down and feeling that people are not talking enough about the issue and the mental health issue that you're feeling. A lot of us are feeling a lot of stress, but talking about it, finding people where you can confide on and talk to and say everything. And all of us as a society, we need to promote the idea that let's not only say and do and that everything is perfect and we're all very happy like we do on social media. You know, we have those good days and bad days. We have months that we go into dark times. We talk about it, we show it. Everybody else will be encouraged to show it too. And I think they'll get the right help.
Yeah, and you know, perhaps also just getting together and talking with like-minded entrepreneurs, people going through those same challenges. And Brett has a couple of questions, but I'm going to pick one of them for you, Michelle. What can Canadian internet businesses do to compete successfully with other Canadian businesses so that we can actually build a stronger ecosystem and internet here in Canada?
I think the first thing is really dreaming big. I mean, Canada is an amazing country. It's 2% of the global economy, and the internet allows you to be global the day you launch. And so it's not perfectly easy to ship a product or a service anywhere, but it does give you that opportunity in such an easier way than when you have to open individual offices in new countries. And so I think it is having that ambition. I think it is, as Mohammed said, supporting each other in our communities. When we have strong communities, we build strong companies and we build a very strong ecosystem. And it is that gives back. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at any of the strong, you know, startup ecosystems, whether it's Silicon Valley or Israel, they have communities that are constantly giving back, that are nurturing the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so I take that role myself really seriously. I think that it's a huge part of what we have to do as entrepreneurs and the next step in growing the ecosystem. And so it's great. And it's great that there's just resources like CIRA that are encouraging all of this, because this is some of the most important economic activity and growth we're going to have in Canada in the next decade.
Absolutely. We just have a few minutes left. We have quite a few questions, so I'm going to go through them as quickly as possible until we have to wrap. Peter has a question saying, seniors like my mother need a lot of support to order online. Can we have a serious conversation about digital literacy? There are some people who maybe can't use the internet. Mohammed, I'm just thinking, you know, in the restaurant biz today and thinking about things like vaccine passports and showing your verification. And it is challenging for some people still. What do we do about the fact that there still is a digital divide in Canada and there are some people left out, including seniors?
Well, I think that's why we need the hybrid in the beginning and with a lot of education and make it simpler for them. And it has to take some time before they change. And some of them will always ask their daughter, their sons to order for them, right? I have to admit, I don't think I know how to order for myself food because my assistant has done that. She's smarter than me and she does better job. But and sometimes when I'm stuck and she doesn't answer me, and I'm like, I gotta learn it. But she's always fast because before I get to the order, she's already calling me back. But I feel, and I felt it when we started Boxed, right away someone came to support us because we said if you buy $50 worth of food, we will feed a homeless on your behalf at Boxed at the opening. And someone came in to support us and she didn't know how to order. And that's why we introduced right away the concierge with an iPad that will order for you on your behalf. So I think we need to walk slow so we don't lose percentage and we don't leave the most important people out. And for me, I grew up saying and always believing that the most important people are our senior. These are the people that provided the life that we're enjoying today. And we should always pay attention to accommodate them in our changes to make sure they're not feeling left out. Even if someone else does it for them, we want to make sure they're not feeling it, not experiencing it only. And that's very important.
It's a really good point. Daniel touches on this as well. Michelle, I'm going to ask you this question. How can those businesses, small and large, really improve the experiences for people who are still hesitant about online purchasing and banking? What role can the business play to take those people along with them?
Oh, I think, how do we get more people comfortable with the internet? I think there's a lot of things in user design that you can do. There's a lot of things in guarantees that you can do. There's a lot of role that groups like CIRA play in actually making sure that there's, great regulation around the internet that's probably also not too restrictive. I mean, I'm now operating in Europe, and I can tell you that I think probably there's pieces where GDPR has gone too far. You actually can't see a single website now without a pop-up, and it's actually a very frustrating experience. So there is this blend that people are going to have to think about in the next 2 years, which is protection of privacy, but also having an experience that is really seamless for the customer, where you can choose whether to opt in or out of your data. And I think businesses generally, I think they can explain. They can explain how many transactions they've done. They can explain, how your data is being used and stored. They can, be very clear on that. They can maintain their online reviews, and all of that builds a lot of consumer trust in people using your brand.
It is interesting. I think this probably will be our final question. And Mohammed, the last few questions that are sitting here, a lot of them do talk about the divide that exists today in terms of bringing other people along. You mentioned seniors in particular. Is there anything else you think that businesses can do, and maybe those small business owners and anyone else listening today, to ensure that everybody is able to enjoy that same level of access, or we continue to offer things in person, like you said, for those who aren't able to do some of the things because of technology?
Yes, I'm going to repeat. I mean, the internet is wonderful. I think short term, we need to be offering hybrid for sure. Otherwise, you will be ready. You'll have to be prepared to let go a big percentage of your sales. And most importantly, the people that you want to serve are very important to let them go, or to make them feel that you don't cater to them. I'm very proud, and I take a pride that I don't sell food. I bring people together. And I think the solution of the world, the problem today, is bringing and breaking bread more often together. And I do not want to really take a part of the people and not break bread with them just because I decide to use a technology that is advanced. So hybrid in the short term is great. Education down the road slowly. Everything, any group of people, when you're studying them, it divides into certain percentages. There is a percentage of people, I'm in the process of buying another business now as we speak, and the owner doesn't like website. On his website, it says, please call us. We prefer to talk to you and hear your voice. And I'm like, okay, that's starting from -20, not even 5 or 10 to get to 100. But that's great. That's what he's done business. Let's see how we're going to accommodate it. But has to be carefully, has to be in stages, and has to be based on a study on the category of the people of your consumer that you're handling. A lot of them are in the middle. They know a little bit about the internet and web ordering and apps, but they're not so much in trust with that. Like, their trust hasn't shifted 100%. They're still feeling that they lost control over their information a little bit. And Sira can do a great work with these kind of people to move them on the other side, but there's always going to be that 15% that they still prefer the in-person and they don't like 100% using it, and we have to accommodate them. I'm against the fact of, if they catch up, great. If they don't catch up, we move without them. No, we don't. We need them. We need every single consumer, and most importantly, we need to cater to every single Canadian.
Yeah, it's great advice. Michelle, any final words from you? We just have a minute left.
I think that this is going to be a golden age for new business creation, and so much of that is going to be digital today. I think we're going to look back on this period and just see this incredible surge of entrepreneurship. So instead of looking at, I think, the challenges, look at the fact that customers today they're more understanding than ever, given that we've lived through a pandemic. I think they're looking more for local and authentic brands, and they want to have that direct experience. I think that is the part of the pandemic that's brought us closer together. And so I'm just very excited to see what's going to happen from this period.
Excellent. Mohammed, final words from you?
Well, thank you very much, Michelle and Amber. Always a pleasure. I'm very proud to be your friend. With everything you do as well together. Sira, amazing work for keeping Canadian protected. We keep downloading all these days, domains and webs, and everybody's realizing how much we need it. But I want to tell everyone out there, please remember the world really asking us to have a kinder P&L, kinder CEOs, build businesses where part of our P&L, there is a line that dedicated to the community. You're asking, how can we be competitive to the rest of the world? Our image to the rest of the world should be a kinder image. And people will prefer to deal with the Canadian businesses over any other businesses if we did that. The world is changing, and the world is changing to celebrate differently. We become who we celebrate. We become what we celebrate. And if we celebrate success and kindness together, not success alone, I think our children in the younger generation will look forward to become successful but kind at the same time. The pandemic, I hope, taught us all to be kinder to each other, closer together. I think the internet will help us doing that, and I think Canada can lead that and change the world to provide a country that open to everyone, hopeful to everyone, but most importantly, kind to the people in need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed and Michelle, for your time today. And thank you so much to our audience for all of your excellent questions.